But if you go the other route where you're buying something more turnkey, you're kind of not really helping yourself. You're actually paying the premium to the builder who's really taking advantage of a piece of land, maximize it, and now they're selling you a piece of it, right? So if you're someone who's looking at getting into real estate investment and you think pre-construction or newer builds are the way to go because it's a newer asset and it feels more safe and secure, you're going to want to listen to this. So it's true that newer construction and new builds are better quality because they might be more long lasting, but there's a fundamental issue when it comes to the financials and the numbers, right? The reason being is real estate is valued on the land that it sits on, right? So it's not necessarily just the house itself, the shell. That actually determines less of the value depending on the size of the property. And for the average property, for example, in Hamilton, the land value itself a lot of times is more than the house, especially when you're buying something that's older. So when you're buying something newer, you're paying for the actual house build, right? And that might seem like, obviously, you're gonna be like, that makes perfect sense. But the thing is there's nothing for you to add to it anymore. That's the issue. So a lot of times these newer builds are on smaller lots. So you can't even add to the exterior, you can't build it up. And then the interior is brand new, you're paying the premium for buying it, right? But the thing is that's kind of, you're capped at that. You can't go further beyond that, even in the future, a lot of times. With older properties, yes, there's some properties that have a lot of issues, but that's very rare. Usually anything that you see in an older property is fixable. The real gold is the fact that you can add to it, whether it's a basement unit, whether it's having a big size lot where you can, build an addition, or down the line, some people really tear down and rebuild, right? Like that's their strategy for more like advanced investors or builders. And you can really take advantage of the land size in these older builds because they just have kind of like this layout that you can really play with. Like it's a common strategy in Hamilton, for example, to buy bungalows, do a basement conversion, right? Legalize it. And that automatically like gets you double the value that you put in for the renovation back, right? You can't do that with a new build. And another common one that's getting more popular than a lot of my clients are doing is they're adding a third suite in the back of the property, like a detached garage would be converted into a unit, or you could build one from scratch. So these are strategies that you can only employ on usually older properties because they have bigger lots. Because newer builds, usually the builders have to cram in a bunch of houses or a big condo until obviously condos are inside buildings. So they're maximizing their usage of the land because land is a lot more expensive than it used to be, right? Versus like having a big 50 by 100 lot where you can add extra space to the property, build additions, or just build a whole new house, and really take advantage of everything at your disposal. So cities are also in support of you doing that. That's the other thing, right? Like they want these older properties that have a lot of extra land to be used in a way where there's more housing provided. So if you're an investor, like all this stuff goes in your favor. But if you go the other route where you're buying something more turnkey, you're kind of not really helping yourself. You're actually paying the premium to the builder who's really taking advantage of a piece of land, maximize it, and now they're selling you a piece of it, right? You're kind of not really helping yourself. You're actually paying the premium to the builder who's really taking advantage of a piece of land, maximize it, and now they're selling you a piece of it, right? So I'm not saying it's not something you should do at all. I know like in some cases it makes sense. For some people, they want to be very passive. But for the average person, buying something that's pre-built, if depending on like I said, your situation, it's not really going to make sense financially. Like logically, it doesn't make sense to me, right? But it could make sense if you're someone that really wants to avoid doing any sort of rentals, you want to be passive, or you have enough funds where you're like, I don't need to build wealth in that way. I'd rather, be more slow and steady because that might be not worth it for you to get actively involved, do renovations, buy an older property. But if you're looking to scale up, right, I always preach, like, even if it does take a little bit more work, if you have the capacity to do it, like 100% of the time, go for doing that, because otherwise you're just tying up your money into this asset that is capped at what it's at, and you're banking on its value going up. Whereas with another type of property that might be older, you have the ability to force the appreciation by adding value, right? And that could be as big as taking a house and putting a building there, or buying two pieces of land, like, or two properties side by side, and, merging the lots, building up. But that's more advanced, but you get my point. So that's what I would recommend for a lot of people, even if it is newer, even if you're not going to do something right away, because price wise, right, a new build condo honestly is not that much cheaper. It's probably, like, at the moment in Hamilton, you can buy a detached house on a big lot that needs a little bit of work for pretty much, like, let's say like $100,000 more than what you would pay for a brand new condo that's like a 1-bed. So if you run the numbers, like, rent wise too, that's another thing. Rent is, like, people don't care if it's an older property. They can't care because there's not enough rental supply. So if you're giving someone that house, like 9 out of 10 times they're paying you way more than they would for that same condo, and you have the ability to add an extra unit in that house. So now you're doubling your rent almost. You're going to get double the rent that you would through the condo. So you get my point. Like, your possibilities really open up. And the more you kind of start doing this, you'll see, like, it starts to snowball, right? And you can do that because, again, you have the ability to add value, and you're not capped at what's currently existing and what's there, right? You can add to it. So just use that to your advantage, and definitely reach out to me, right, if that's something you're looking to kind of get involved in, because it's always good to talk to people who've already done this stuff. And I practice what I preach. And I also am connected with other people, like contractors, designers, architects, brokers, that all kind of understand these strategies. So reach out to me and I can definitely help you out.